All righty. I don't know about you. When I jumped into Proverbs, I didn't want to do it because it's so choppy and it's just different. But I just grew to love it. I don't know about you. This time around, it's been my very favorite time going through Proverbs, and I just have learned so much. I give myself a checkup from the neck up about every week, so it's been good for me. We left off for verse 10 of chapter 30. So jump there with me if you would. And we get to the last chapter, it gets a little more cohesive, but there's a few cohesive things as we get into this. This is the sayings of Agar. Remember, he was a person who gathered. His name means gather, and he gathered a bunch of Solomon's Proverbs, and this is who's gathered these, but they're still Solomon's Proverbs. Verse 10 says, "Never slander a worker to the employer, or the person will curse you and you'll pay for it." In other words, stay out of other people's business. Don't rat out somebody at work. You say, well, but they're coming in late, or you know what? That's not your business. That's between them and their boss. Somehow or another, if you get involved, even though you think nobody knows it was you, they'll find out. You're going to be in trouble. So just don't do it. Verses 11 to 14 gives you the attributes of an evil person. You need to know this. Now, not saying that this would be you. Don't let these earmarks be a part of your life, but it helps you identify somebody who's just coming from evilness. Some people curse their father and do not thank their mother. They are pure in their own eyes, but they are filthy and unwashed. They look proudly around, casting disdainful glances, and they have teeth like swords and fangs like knives. They devour the poor from the earth and the needy from among humanity. Wow. Well, this is just talking about people who just don't want to live in a pure or godly fashion at all. This is their attributes. This is what they're made of. You say, well, it kind of hit me in one of those areas. Well, then don't be a part of that. This is disdainful. They don't respect their parents. There's another scripture that will come down here. They'll talk about the parents being such an important thing, but they don't respect their parents. And this is an important thing. They remain unwashed, spiritually filthy. And they're haughty, and they have these sharp teeth. In other words, they have words. This is a kind of a picture, a metaphor. They have sharp words that bite, and they take advantage of the poor and the needy. Just don't, don't be that guy. Don't be around that guy. You say, well, how are we ever going to reach him? There's a difference between hanging around and reaching out. Reaching out, I can witness to somebody in 2 minutes, but I don't have to hang with them. I don't have to have dinner with them to do that. If they're evil, just keep it in perspective, okay? Verse 15, the leech has two suckers that cry out, more, more. Let's stop there for just a second. You say, wow, that's a terrible image. Well, what it's saying is our greed. It's talking about greed. Greed just cannot get enough. It cannot be satisfied. It's insatiable. So I've got this, I've got to have another of that, and I need to have more of that. I've got a job that pays great, and I need now another side job so I can pile on for my 401k or whatever. We live in a country of excess. A lot of our choices don't exist in much of the world. We say, well, I think I want more steak. I think I want another baked potato. We can do that here. In a lot of countries, that just doesn't exist. And so because of that, if you don't have some kind of willpower, you're just going to say, well, I got to have more and more and more. I got to have more and more and more. I got to have a new car every year. I got to have this. I got to have that. Be careful. Be careful. There's just so much wrong with that whole attitude. If you want more of anything, well, then that song we just sang, closer. More time with the Lord, closer. That's what you need. Then in the rest of that verse, it goes on and says there's 4 things that are never satisfied. And they never say enough. The grave, the barren womb, the thirsty desert, and the blazing fire. The grave, it's like a conveyor belt. We are all headed for the grave. And I don't care if you're godly or you're evil, young or you're old, close or somebody distant, we're all headed there. It's only really a matter of time. Unless the Lord comes back, everybody is headed there. And so it's just trying to illustrate here, it's an insatiable thing. It can't get enough. And it's simply saying, the grave is ahead for all of us. So be prepared. The second thing that it said was the barren womb. Now, this would have affected even more so in that time in the Jewish culture, because to be barren was to be looked down upon. Remember the story of Hannah and how the ridicule that went with that. Moses had said, God had said to Moses, that if they went into the land and they did not honor him, but they bowed down to the false idols, that one of the things he would create would be barrenness. And so there was barrenness in a lot of the people of the land. Now, that doesn't hit quite as hard today. However, that doesn't mean it's gone. if somebody really wants to have a child and they can't have it, it's a real problem for a lot of women and men if they cannot have it, their wife cannot have a child. And so it's kind of it's insatiable in that there's no way to quell the pain of it for some people. Also, the thirsty desert. That's pretty explanatory. Every time I drive across the desert, I'd go see my kids in Laughlin, or I'd go up to 395 to see my other kids up there. Or we went out to Phoenix, where one of my sons was having a surgery out there. I always think when I'm going across there, I have a dependable car, but what if? Do I have enough water in this car to live? This could go badly. You ever think about those things? Apparently you do, by the way. You're saying that. As the temperature goes up and you see, I can't see civilization anywhere. You're thinking, do we have any water in the car? I have a story about that, but I won't tell it right now. And the fourth one is the blazing fire. It's amazing that as they thought about it, even a great city can just be leveled by a fire that gets out of control. And it's insatiable. These are things that are never satisfied. Verse 17, the eye that mocks a father and despises a mother's instruction will be plucked out by ravens in the valley and eaten by vultures. Again, it's imagery here, but it's the one who mocks the instruction of his parents. He's going to wither in life, especially in the valleys, as it points out. Those would refer to hard times. And so I don't know about you, but as a parent, it's neat when your kids are little and especially as a guy, you got your little man there and you showed him how to build something and he's got a million questions and you're helping him with it and all of that whole process. It's kind of wonderful because he's learning and you're talking and you're just having a great time. And he listens to what you have to say. And then they hit the teenage years and you don't know anything at that point. I like Mark Twain, who said, I think it was, he said, when you have, of course, he was a great satirist, but he says, if you have kids, put them in a barrel with a hole and feed them. And when they hit their teenage years, plug up the hole. And I didn't say that, but what's funny? Then didn't they go through a phase where they get married? And now they're talking to dad again, or they're talking to mom again, or they're saying, how do you do this? Oh, I don't understand. What about this? How does this work? And they're trying to learn again. But then after a while, you're thinking, again, I don't think they're listening anymore. Do you feel like that as parents? Do you have adult children and you say, I don't think they're really listening to me. Boy, I'm feeling really lonely here. Am I the only one that goes through that? And I'm a preacher, and I'm having that problem. Well, I guess we're going to move on beyond that one. But the imagery is here of listening to your parents. They have so much wisdom. As you know, as parents today, and even grandparents, you have a life full of things you've learned, hard knocks you've gone through, and you have so much to say, and you're just looking for the open listening ear. And when you have a child or a grandchild that just doesn't hear you, it's kind of a painful thing because they're going to go through it, right? Yes, thank you, Ben. I was looking to see if anybody was awake here. Verse 18, 3 things amaze me. No, 4 things I don't understand. Now, these are great. How an eagle glides through the sky, how a snake slithers on a rock, how a ship navigates the ocean, how a man loves a woman. We used to have a place up at Hemet Lake. We would go up there whenever we could, get up there and study and walk and just have a great time. And there are eagles up there, and sometimes there's more than one, and sometimes there's none, it seems like. But to be standing there when an eagle does come in, and he comes in low, and unlike the hawk that'll take a straight dive down, a lot of times the eagle will swoop down in the lake because he spots his prey way up there, and he spots it, and he's going to come in close, and he just glides. It seems like feet above the water. There's no shadow for this poor unsuspecting fish. And when the time is right, he goes down into the water with his talons and his legs, and he grabs that fish. And it's a marvel to watch. And the psalmist is saying, there's just nothing like watching an eagle fly. And it's true. You see all kinds of things. There's nothing quite like it. There's nothing like that. As he goes on, he says, there's nothing like a snake. Now, I can't stand snakes, but their vertebrate system is so interesting to me, how they can slither the way they do, crawl the way they do, coil the way they do. It's amazing. I still hate them, though. How a ship navigates an ocean. Remember the day. We're talking 1000 BC when this is written. So we're talking 3,000 years ago. They didn't have boats like we have them today. They comparatively were tragically rickety. The Romans and the Greeks really brought in the ships that made a difference, but this is before those guys. And so they had these ships, and they would go across, and they go all the way over to Spain and Italy in those days, or even on down to the north coast of Africa. They would do this in these ships, and the heavy waves that they could navigate and get through. It's amazing to them. It's not so much today because we have these monster ships and they can weather just about anything, but it's still amazing to them. But the last one, I got to thinking about a lot: how a man can love a woman. Now, I read up. I was thought, well, let's just do a little look-see on this one. Tell me, AI, what happens, what causes a man to love a woman? And so they'll give you this whole big, long thing in there. The only word I understood in there was dopamine, but everything else I didn't understand. But they were trying to say, well, it's a chemical reaction. They had to get the word evolution in there. And so these things have all caused, this is what causes a man to love a woman. So I'm sorry, honey, I've misled you all these years. I thought there was something more to it than that, but apparently it was just a chemical reaction. How stupid is that? It's just, you have a little baby, a big rough guy, all of a sudden a little baby girl is born, and he melts. Just watch him. He's so in love with her, he will kill anything that gets near this child, and God forbid she gets her first boyfriend. Boy's dead. They have to go through 2 or 3 of those to get a live one. It's the feelings that come up. Now, I want to just say this. They say, well, okay, this and this and this cause it, and you get the dopamine effect that makes you want to have more of her. That's basically what it comes to. And dopamine is in everything. It's in gaming. It's in pornography. It's in everything. That rush, and then I have to have a greater rush, and then a greater rush, and a greater rush. But I speculate on this a little bit, and I want to just use a great word, postulate here. It's the other way around. That when you fall in love, yes, reactions begin to start taking place in your mind, in your body. You get the dopamine effect kind of, in other words, it comes after the fact instead of causing the effect. You understand? You know what I'm talking about? Shake your head like you maybe pretend like you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I think that's what it is. And the psalmist is looking at these things. I'm just amazed how a man can love a woman. Now, I'll prove to you that it's not a dopamine rush right there, because we've been married 57 years, and it hasn't gone away. If it were dopamine, I'd have to have about 57 of you now, I guess, around the house for that new rush, new feeling. It's just not that way. Love has nothing to do with that. The world doesn't really know what it's talking about, especially these secular scientists. But he says, I'm just amazed by these things. These are God's creations. Verse 20. An adulterous woman consumes a man and then wipes her mouth and says, what's wrong with that? Now, I want to point out to you, I don't want to get too much ahead of myself, but when we get into chapter 31 shortly here, many of these have been guided by Solomon's mother. And Solomon's mother is who? Bathsheba. And I want to talk about that when we get to the beginning of chapter 31, but she's been guiding him. Apparently these are young. I think Proverbs was written when he was somewhat young and before he had the last 900 wives or whatever, and whatnot. But it says here in verse 20, an adulterous woman consumes a man, then wipes her mouth. In other words, she's just rebellious in her attitude. Says, well, what's wrong with that? To live in sin without any regrets and no regard for God or other people, this is a problem. Paul addressed this when he said to Timothy in 1 Timothy 4:2, these people are hypocrites, liars. Their consciences are dead. That's what that person is. I read you from the first chapter of Romans, starting at verse 24. So God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their hearts desired. As a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. They traded the truth about God for a lie. So they worshiped and served the things God created instead of the Creator himself, who is worthy of eternal praise. Amen. And that is why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turned against the natural way to have sex instead and indulge with sex with each other. And even the men, instead of having normal relations or sexual relations with women, burned in lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves and the penalty they deserved. Since they thought it foolish to acknowledge God, he abandoned them to their foolish thinking and let them do things that should never be done. He's saying here in verse 20, back where we are right here, this adulterous woman, she didn't care about any of that stuff. Let's just do it. Let's just have fun with it. And she, we go back to chapter 5, even some in 6 and 7 of chapter 5, where it talks about that, the immoral woman who does this for whatever reasons, if she's trying to make money off of it, or if she's just, if she's just obsessed with that kind of thing, or whatever. He says, you know what? Stay away from this kind of girl. Just stay away from her. Guys, just if you're single, there's a word for you right there. I guess if you're not single, there's a word for you too. Verse 21. There are 3 things that make the earth tremble, and no 4 it cannot endure. A slave who becomes a king, an overbearing fool who prospers, a bitter woman who finally gets a husband, a servant girl who supplants her mistress. He says, I just can't quite even understand these things. They're kind of beyond belief. A slave becoming a king, but isn't that what Joseph did? And in essence, isn't that what Moses did? If you want to look at it correctly. And yet we're called also to that same thing. We're unlikely. We sing these songs about it. But let me read this to you from 1 Peter 2:9. But you people are not like that, for you are a chosen people. You are a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's very own possession. As a result, you can show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. You were slaves, and now you are princes in the kingdom of God. I like Chris Tomlin sings about it in his one song, and I think it's really good. God's raised us. I like it. The prisoners are now running free. I love that kind of imagery. He says the second thing is an overbearing fool who prospers. Somebody gets an inheritance, or they win a lottery, and they didn't earn the money. They just got all this money, and they're obnoxious about it in a kind of a Rodney Dangerfield kind of way, if you're old enough to remember that. And he says these guys are morons. That's what I get. It's beyond belief. And the angry, bitter woman who finally gets a man. She's an angry, bitter person, and yet she still hooks a guy. Now, this is written 1000 BC. That really wasn't the way it had to be back in those days. You got a really terrible wife or something like that. Forgive me, this is not me. I don't live in that age. I'm not that sexist, misogynistic kind of person. But you had a bitter wife. You dumped her. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's what they did. How did she get, as a bitter wife, a guy, unless he was just really ugly? Just couldn't get anybody else. He's got a really bad breath continuously or something like that. And, can't get anybody else, so he marries her. Is that what's going on there? And so the psalmist is saying, the proverb writer is saying, I don't even understand how that ever even happened. The fourth one is a servant girl that would step over her mistress. She would get in there instead of serving her mistress. She would be laying in plans to be able to subvert her, to actually take away her spot. Get into an engagement with the husband instead, the king, and take her place. He says, I don't even understand how that can happen. But I tell you what, I bet the Proverbs writer Solomon went through that. Yeah. I believe he had some of those gals that said, they were there and they're thinking, well, you know what, I can take that place. I can get that place. And he says, I can't even understand it. Verse 24 to 28, again, are a little set of things that speak of wisdom. There are 4 things on the earth that are small and unusually wise. Ants, they aren't strong, but they store up food all summer. Hydroxes aren't powerful, but they make their homes among the rocks and on the trees, by the way. Locusts, they have no king, yet they march in formation. Lizards are easy to catch, but they are found even in the king's palaces. And I kind of like it as I talk about those things, the things that amaze him. There are so many things that amaze us. In the world. I think about, we were in Alaska, and they were talking about the migration of the whales. The gray whales will go all the way, not only down to California, and actually around the bend and come back up the Baja. They will also travel over to Hawaii. And you know what there is for a marker between there and Hawaii? Nothing. It just gets deeper and deeper. They don't even go down that deep, and they get there, and they have their babies, and they come back, and they do this kind of. How do they do that? It's amazing to me as you think about the 3,000 miles they have to travel, or things like the bumblebee. As I've talked about many times, it's not possible for him to fly. Wingspan, if you guys, anybody in here, engineers, been here close enough, wingspan versus weight, it doesn't work. If you get on a Boeing 747 and they've got little stubby wings that go from here to that wall, you're in trouble. It just doesn't work. Yet these things, I think God puts them out there to just totally amaze. You get a huge flock of thousands of birds, and all of a sudden they turn on a dime. They're inches apart. Turn on a dime, and choo, 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 like a bunch of, It's like Top Gun times 2,000 moving in sync. It's amazing. How does that work? It has to be the Lord. Their brain is about that big. It has to work. It's amazing. It's the Lord. And I think that's why he does that, by the way. And I think it's always fascinating to watch secular scientists try with a straight face to, try to explain some of these things. It doesn't do it. Verse 29. There are 3 things that walk with a stately stride, 4 that strut about. The lion, the king of animals, who won't turn aside for anything, the strutting rooster, the male goat, and the king as he leads his army. And I got to thinking about this. I thought, okay, the lion, I could buy it. I've been up close to a lion on the other side of the glass. I mean, right up to him, we're right up to his face, with the glass about that thick between us. But yeah, he's big, he's ferocious and terrible. He's not the biggest, but he's big. And he won't get out of the way for anything or anybody. You think, well, a good elephant, you'd think could just sit on him, but he won't. He terrifies everything. And we talk about the king of the animals, and then the strutting rooster. I can't stand roosters. They've got some just down the hill from me, and the sound travels up. I hate roosters, just detest it. So we went to Hawaii. The last 2 times over there, one time we were over on the Big Island, and we had this big old house, and I had all my kids and grandkids there, and we have a great, big, beautiful house. There's roosters out there in the morning. Why do you allow, whoever brought a rooster to this island? We were over on the other island in Waikiki, right downtown. Well, this has got to be safe in here. Every morning, that's stupid. We bought earplugs. We couldn't stand it after a while. So why is he so proud and obnoxious rather than just chickens? Why is he? Well, before I answer that, the last 2 are the male goat, and they're just ornery sometimes. They don't care about anybody or anything. They're just ornery. They had one that when my grandkids were little, my Wes and Mindy's little kids were little, they had a goat out there, and he had 1 horn. It was a male goat. But he was always batting at the kids and running at them, and my littlest one, Hayden, I think she says, I'm going to shoot him. She's serious at 3. I'm going to shoot him. I'm thinking, she scares me, I think that's funny, and then the king, why is that? You know what it is? This shows that God is in control. He gave that rooster, he gave that goat, he gave that lion, he gave the king that attitude to lead. They lead in their fields. And this is just the Lord. Now, it's different today in many ways, but I think people talk about A-type personalities and all that stuff. But in reality, the fact is that God chooses things today, but he has built into creation these things about leadership. And it just shows God leading is what it is to me. Let's see. Let's go down to verse 32. If you've been a fool by being proud or plotting evil, cover your mouth in shame. In others, repent of it. Verse 33. As the beating of cream yields butter, and striking the nose causes bleeding, stirring up in anger causes quarrels. You know what? I think it's just wise to remember that if you stir up anger, you're going to have problems, whether it's at your work or in your family or so many times in a home, husband and wife. So learn how to stop it. Stop stirring it up. Just stop it. We used to have in our office, and for all good nature, we had a couple of guys in there that would banter about, and you kind of give each other a bad time. It was all in fun, but I realized one day this wasn't a good thing. It was stirring it up, and I could tell while everybody kind of laughed it off. Sometimes it would hit. And so I just sat them all down and talked to them. I said, we don't want to do this anymore. And we just don't want to do it. I know I don't mean bad, but it's hurting anyway. We're not going to make fun of each other. We're not going to do it, even in fun. Just stop it. We're here to build up one another because I could see something was brewing, and that was not a good thing. Okay? All right, chapter 31, the great one about the Proverbs 31 woman, but it takes us a few verses to get to it. It says in the very beginning of it, the sayings of King Lemuel containing the message which his mother taught him. Now, most commentators agree that King Lemuel, that's another nickname for Solomon. In other words, how we have Bob and Robert and whatnot. They had a nickname, and this may have been her nickname for him. It means dedicated one, so it would stand a reason because that's what Solomon was. He was dedicated by the Lord. And so they believe this, and therefore the person who is teaching, and this is kind of a conclusion to the whole collection of Proverbs, is the mother. that would make her Bathsheba. Now, I need to say this. You say, well, wait a minute. Bathsheba, the one who, she caused David to fall into sin. Well, maybe it was the other way around. The fact is, David was a good, godly young man who made a horrific mistake, and he erred. And Bathsheba, apparently she was raised in a godly home. We don't know much about her, but we do know about her grandfather, Ahithophel, who was one of David's best advisors and best friends. And so those two got together. They shouldn't have. He called for her. He had her come up. He was the king. He had leadership power. And anyway, they wound up having a baby. And that baby died. And then God gave them another one after they got right with him, and that was Solomon. And so they were godly people who made a great error. But you know what? Apparently God picked them both back up. And I like that because it shows God's restoration. Don't ever be so puritanical that you look at people and say, well, they screwed up. That's it for them. No, give them a chance to get back up. Help them get back up on their feet. Restore them. We talked about that before in the New Testament. We'll talk about it again. Because the Bible says to restore, that's a word that means just set back upright, like setting a pillar back upright. And don't ever talk with anybody who's fallen in any way. Don't go in there and go to their face and say, I can't believe it. You're so stupid. I can't believe that you did that. Don't do that. Go in there and pray ahead of time. Figure out some way to help them get back up because they're not a throwaway. God spent too much time with them. They're not a throwaway. And so I think about that with David and Bathsheba also here. So with that little thought in mind, kind of getting into what it's about, we're going to go ahead and take it all off here. And this is her talking to her son. When we get down to verse 10, from 10 to 31, is an acrostic proverb, just like Psalms 119, where each part of that psalm is the next part of the Hebrew alphabet. Each line from 10 to 31 is the new letter of each, they are alphabetically in order, so to speak. The first letter of each one of those lines starts with Aleph, Beth, Deloth, Gimel, and such, like that, in that fashion. With me? Are you impressed by my Hebrew? I'm not at all. So stay with me. Let's take a look at it for a minute. And it says, so they say, contain the message which his mother taught him, my son, O my son of my womb, son of my vows. Do not waste your strength on women, on those who ruin kings. It's not for kings, old Lemuel, to guzzle wine. Rulers should not crave alcohol, for if they drink, they may forget the law and not give justice to the oppressed. Alcohol is for the dying, and wine for those with bitter distress. Let them drink to forget their poverty and remember their troubles no more. Now stop there for a minute. So there's two things that she talks about here. The first one is about women. Don't give your strength. Literally, that word is also translated valor here in another place. We'll read it in a minute, another verse. But it's translated that way also. But the word strength simply means this. Some of your versions may say it a little different, but it means power, strength, and wealth. And it's the same word for valor. Don't waste it on women. Let's go back here and take a look on women. Did you notice it's not woman, it's women? Don't waste anything on a bunch of women. Because you're designed for one woman, as you'll read the rest of this as we start at verse 10. You're designed to be husband and wife. So you don't waste your valor. Some versions and some commentators will say, don't waste your sexualness on women. Because it should be one. It should be your wife, man. That's just where the Bible is at. So there's two things she talks about this. Or he talks about, don't give your strength, your power, your strength, your wealth on women. A man is to give that to just one person. That's his wife. And I think this is the reason for the teaching in chapter 5 that keeps us on, actually 5 and 7, that keeps us on track about that. The second thing he talks about is, nor give your ways to the destroyer of kings, which is alcohol. And so we have one of those passages that really deals with it. And people all the time ask me, well, is it okay to have a beer? Or is it okay to have a drink occasionally? Or is it okay? I love what my youth director told me years ago. He says, if you have to ask if it's okay, it's probably not. Does the Bible say you can take some wine? I need to show you, maybe I'll have that up for you next week. I need to show you what they had for wine in that day in the fermentation process. And you need to understand, it's not like what we have today. When we drink today, we have things that are so intoxicating that was not necessarily the case back in those days. You'd have to drink a lot. And I think maybe I'll try to get that up here for you next week. It's a short thing from a message that we heard at our pastor's conference last year. Liquor is going to destroy a lot. And this is what the Bible teaches. And Proverbs teaches it so well throughout the book. It will destroy your relationships, your marriages, your families, your careers, your reputations, your health, your happiness, your character. It will treat you with scorn. It will mock you. It will reduce you spiritually and emotionally and physically to a wreck. It will leave you in poverty one way or the other. You'll lose your drive. You'll miss work. You'll miss it that way. If you're married, you'll lose your mate probably eventually. It just happens all the time. And if you lose your mate, then you're going to find out what alimony is all about. And there goes there you're in poverty. This is the fact of it. It's destructive for 4 reasons, as it says here. It causes kings to forget the law. It causes everybody to forget the law. But it causes kings to forget the law. It causes kings to pervert justice. It's only good, he says here, for a dying man to reduce the pain or forgetting your misery, although that's just a trap all by itself. Well, I'm just miserable, so I'm going to go get drunk. Well, do you think that's going to solve life for you at all? It doesn't. It also keeps the king from fulfilling his responsibility, which is, as we read in this section here, to speak on behalf of those who can't help themselves, those who need a king to intercede for them, to judge righteously, to plead for the poor and the needy. It wipes all of that out. And so, let's go ahead and read from verse 8. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Booze will keep you from that. Ensure justice for those who are being crushed. Yes, speak up for the poor and the helpless, and see that they get justice. This is your job. As a dad in the home or a mom in the home, your job is impaired. You say, well, what about pot? Oh, come on, let's not even go there. Just think about these things. What are you doing to your kids? What are you doing to your brain? What are you doing to your relationship with one another? Do you hate each other so much you have to get drunk to talk to each other? Don't I hate the pause. No, you don't. That's just, and if you drink and you say, well, you're just being old-fashioned, whatever. I want to start saying what my daughter used to say when she was teenagers, whatever, If you get on my side of the desk, you know what I'm talking about. Because I can't tell you how many people I've counseled over the years, and it's either been pot or booze, and it has been the destroyer of their homes, the destroyer of their families. You say, well, I don't know. I think it's okay for me to. Okay. Oh, well. Whatever. Come see me when it falls apart. I'll counsel you and say, told you. I won't tell you that, but I'll just don't be that dumb. Okay, I got a few minutes. I can only get myself in so much trouble. Let's go. Verse 10. So this begins the section on the woman with the virtuous or the noble character. We won't finish it tonight because there's two dimensions to it that I want to go through, but I'll go a little ways into it. Now, you're going to look at these things and you'll say, well, who can be all of this? It's not what it's saying. This is the earmarks. This is not to attain to. This is hopefully what comes from the Spirit through you and out of you. Sometimes all we have to do in that, as a Christian, all we have to do is get out of the way for the Lord to move and the Spirit of God to move in our lives. You say, well, I'm really struggling in these one areas. Then ask for the Holy Spirit to fill you, bless you, help you, because He will. Let's read a little bit. Who can find a virtuous and capable wife? She's more precious than rubies. Her husband can trust her, and she will greatly enrich his life. She brings him she brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She finds wool and flax and busily spins it. You haven't been doing that much lately, Daddy. I'm worried about that part of it. She's been buying her material. I don't know, what's that? She's like a merchant ship, bringing her food from afar. She gets up before dawn to prepare breakfast for her household and plans on the day's work for her servant girls. Guys are looking at their wives now saying, well, you don't get it. She goes to inspect the field and buys it. With her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She's energetic, strong, hard worker. She makes sure that her dealings are profitable. Her lamp burns late into the night. Her hands are busy spinning thread, her fingers twisting fiber. She extends a helping hand to the poor and opens her arms to the needy. She has no fear of winter for her household, for everyone is warm in their clothes. She makes her own bedspread. She dresses in fine linen and purple gowns. Her husband is well known at the city gates where he sits with the other civic leaders. She makes belted linen garments and sashes to sell to the merchants. She's clothed with strength and dignity. I love that line. And she laughs without fear of the future. She's got faith. And she speaks her words, and they are wise. She gives the instructions with kindness. She carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from her laziness. Her children stand and bless her. Her husband praises her. And there are many virtuous and capable women in the world, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive, beauty does not last, but a woman who fears the Lord will be greatly praised. Reward her for all that she has done. Let her deeds publicly declare her praise. Now, we're not done. We won't even finish it right now. But I'm just going to start it with this, and I kind of want to go through it a little bit next week. Then I want to give you the second dimension to this, okay? So starts off and it says, she's one who aspires to be a godly mother and to be an excellent woman. Half of it is the aspiration. And you say, well, what are you going to tell about the guys? That's a different passage. I'll tell you what your responsibility is, guys. You make sure she's happy. You make sure that you pray for her. The Bible says we are to wash her over with the word. You be praying for your wife. If you will pray, therefore give her a free and open arena, and you're praying for her, she can develop and flourish. This is what can happen in her life. She's virtuous. It's that same word again. She's got valor. In other words, she's got power and wealth and strength contained within her. She's worth more than any money can buy. Her husband can trust her not to look for someone else. He can, right? Yes. She does her husband good and not harm. She is his friend, his companion, his partner, and never his competitor. She shops for the best deal for her family. She has servant's heart, and she's a good businesswoman and careful with the money. If there's any one thing that probably we had scuffles over the years was money, and Donna was much more along the line of what we're reading right here. And I'm thinking, oh, can't we just go do something? Can we go to Hawaii, all of us? And she rolls her eyes. We can't go out for ice cream. She's holding the budget tight because she's thinking about her household. And then at the other times, it's not that she's just tight. Sometimes then I'm kind of on that page, and she'll say, you know what, we've got enough money. We could probably do this and that. I remember one year, one of our kids got knocked down and had his good skateboard taken away. And, it was really a bummer. We were tight. We just didn't really have the money. But she got, I think it was a bonus check or something like that. She said, let's go out Christmas shopping. And she found him another skateboard to replace that one. So we just work together. We're not competitors. We don't have to fight about things. But a lot of times they're more home-minded than you guys are, and they're going to watch the household budget. And if there's money, great. And if there's not money, well then no, we're not going to go spend it. It's their attitude. I think that's so wise. She has this servant's heart and a good business sense, and she's careful with the money. She looks after her spiritual and her emotional health. It talks about this. And so she's taking care of herself. Women, if you want to be a Proverbs 31 woman, really it just starts with the Spirit of God in your life. Are you taking time? Are you talking to the Lord? Are you reading your word? Are you getting down before the Lord with your hands lifted up when nobody's home? Are you just spending time with the Lord that nobody else can see, just you and God, and connecting and letting the Lord just minister in and through you? We talked about that Sunday morning. In him we live and move and have our being. Are you there? If you're not, well, all the rest of this is just fluff. It's just window dressing. It's got to proceed. These things proceed from a person who takes time with God. And if you do, you're going to see great things. She persists until she has nothing, until she's done her very best job. I like that. I mean, I've watched you women. I've been over to Ben's house. I see, Ben, I know you probably don't do the decor. I think probably Joyce does, but it's just great. Even when you get to the front door, it's like all finished out really cool. I think it's a New Orleans type of door. Everything is there. It's set by the women. I watch this as I go to your homes. I see that. I see the touch, and Donna has all the touch. I learned over the years. In the early years, I had no, regulator on the mouth. And, Donna would do something, and I'd say, well, why don't we do something different here? And I think, now I look back and I think, what do you know? What do I know about decor? I don't know anything. Why do I flap in my gums when she's gifted in those things? And, at our place. And so people walk in our house and say, well, there's plants everywhere. By the way, it's been that way the entire marriage. I keep a machete by, not too far. Yeah, you really do have one. But Donna just is into that because she thinks that's just a part of what it should be. And I like that. So I have to defer to her because she has a taste for that. I had over the years to just step back and let God grow her and let her have freedom to do that stuff. And so my great job in life, Ben, this is my pearl for you tonight before we close, is just to shut up and get out of the way. She doesn't need your advice on decor. She doesn't need your advice on shopping for the family and the kids. She doesn't need any of that. She needs you to make some more money so she can get this stuff done. Turn her loose. Let her be all that God would have her to be. Pave a way for her. If she wants to get a little more schooling for something, pave a way for it. If she wants to start doing something creative, if she wants to do something with her skills, please make a way for her to do it. Don't give her a bad time about it. Don't say, oh, man, you got a Bible club going on. Man, I wanted you to make me some lemonade today. Stupid stuff. Let her be. Let her become all that God has intended for her to be. You will never regret it in the long run. Trust me, you never will. Okay, we're going to stop it right there because we're out of time. But we'll pick up this, and I'll give you the second layer of this next week as we close this out. Okay, then we're going to jump into Ecclesiastes. Let's stand together. Thanks, everybody, for their patience. We have the main air conditioner off because I think the whole block is kind of frying down. Everybody's air conditioners are all on, so we've gone with the smaller ones just to keep that from happening during this service tonight. Father, we're grateful that you've come in among us. Lord, that you said that wherever two or three are there in my name, I am there in the midst of them. So, Lord, we know that you've been here with us. We know that while we sing about closer to you, you're right here next to us. All we have to do is get our heart right, and we recognize that. Well, I want to be closer. We all do. I pray, Lord, for those that just have come in tonight kind of beat up from life, and maybe they haven't really felt like they were really close to you today or the last week or whenever. School, work, family, kids, life, job, just things aren't clicking right. And there's just that kind of dryness and that kind of emptiness there that, Lord, you just know it drives us crazy. Lord, sometimes I think you leave it there just for us to cry out to you. Just to cry out to you. Say, God, please. It's not a big disaster. I don't have everybody in the hospital. My bills are paid. But Lord, there's just something that's not vibrant, something that's kind of yuck about life. Lord, I know you would look at us and say, it's an easy answer, but we can't put our finger on it. So I pray that, Lord, you would come and you would touch hearts. You can untangle knots. I've seen you do it so many times, just in an instant. Things we kind of get in arguments with our husbands or wives or kids. And just, we're trying to figure out how to untangle it. Lord, you just step in. I've watched you do it so many times with not just my life, but with others. And with prayer, simple prayer, almost instantly the thing is unknotted. I pray for this tonight. I pray for relationships to be restored. I pray for our relationships with you to be much more restored yet. Let's sing to the Lord. If you'd like to have prayer tonight, maybe things are all kind of, forgive me the word, goobered up in your life, and you say, God, I just need help. I've tangled up. I've been fighting with somebody that I love, fighting with somebody and arguing with them, and I've kind of said things I shouldn't have said, or I've kind of done things in life I shouldn't have done. I know it. I mean, I didn't kill anybody, but God, you know it still wasn't good. Then I just want to encourage you tonight, lay that before the Lord. Let the Lord cleanse you fresh and new. If you want some prayer, guys are up here at the front. They'll pray with you today. Say, I'm so burdened down because I've got somebody else I love so much and they're so sick and they're not getting better. Get some prayer for them. Get some prayer tonight. These men will pray for you. They believe in the power of prayer. They believe that God heals. They've seen God heal. Just get some prayer tonight. Don't go home with that burden. Don't take any burden home. You just don't need to. You're supposed to gather together. And when we confess our faults or our things to one another, that's really what it's talking about. That you just say, hey, Pastor Brian, Ron, say Roy over here. Roy's always standing over here. Ron's over here tonight. He's one of our elders. Say, man, I just got this great gaping hole. I got this need in my life. Take it to God. He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. He says, if you search for me, you'll find me. So just come, get some prayer tonight. Go ahead.